Do you guys want to go to Alaska this week? Today we drove for over 6 hours, farther north than I've ever been before, to spend the long weekend in Stewart, BC and Hyder, Alaska. This trip is pretty spontaneous, even for me, but it's been my longtime dream to see a wild grizzly bear fishing during the salmon run, which you can do at the Fish Creek Wildlife Observation Site. These brown bears are solitary animals that prefer the wilderness and roam freely in home ranges that can be several thousand square kilometers in size. They are therefore very elusive, even in late summer and early autumn, which is the ideal time to spot them. At the end of this video, I'll be sharing some travel tips in case you'd like to pay a visit to Hyder and try to spot some grizzly bears yourself. I had a brief, few-second-long drive-by encounter with a grizzly bear once as it ran off into the bushes. But the world's largest grizzly populations are found in Alaska and British Columbia, so I had high hopes that this trip would give me a much more intimate and extended sighting of one of nature's most powerful and formidable animals. We got to the observation site shortly after 8 a.m. and stayed for 2 hours, wandering up and down the platform and enjoying the scenery, but with no luck in terms of bear sightings. Then we checked back around 1 p.m. on our way through to see Salmon Glacier, and the rangers said there haven't been any sightings yet that day. We checked again at 5 p.m. and one final time after dinner when we stayed until the platform closed at 9 p.m. and there was no more visibility. We had hoped that the cute black bear we saw on the drive up to Alaska would be a sign of a fortuitous trip and ample bear sightings, but we didn't see a single one today, despite being out and about all day and 4 separate attempts at the observation site. What's more, the park rangers told us that although there have been a few black bears seen crossing the highway or wandering through the site, these were all brief sightings, and it had been almost a week since anyone had seen a brown bear there. While we'd seen breathtaking sights and had a great time, the trip somehow didn't feel complete without at least one grizzly bear sighting. It's our last morning and our last chance before we have to drive back home. The ideal time to see most wildlife, including bears, is in the early morning or late evening, around dawn or dusk. Although we are not at all morning people, the possibility of seeing such a mysterious and elusive creature got us up out of our beds at the crack of dawn and out to the platform by 6:30. When we arrived, the rangers told us they haven't seen anything yet that morning. I scanned the surrounding forest as I walked down the 600-foot-long platform, and just as I approached the end, that was when I finally saw, about 300 feet away, a bear with that signature shoulder hump wandering through the creek. Little did we know just how lucky we'd be, as this bear stuck around for over 2 hours, napping, fishing, eating, and splashing up and down the creek. The rangers recognized this particular bear and said that whenever he comes to the creek, he always hangs around for at least a couple hours. Each year, between the months of July to September, both brown and black bears flock to the Fish Creek Wildlife Observation Site. The platform is nested between Marks Creek and its namesake, Fish Creek, which makes it an ideal place to spot bears as they fish for chum and pink salmon, which are plentiful in this stretch of the creeks. When the salmon are so abundant, the bears will often take breaks of several days between fishing trips before they come back to eat more. And when they do, they are able to be picky. This bear chose only the female salmon and ate only the eggs, which are the most fat and nutrient-rich, before moving on to the next fish. This is a time-consuming way to fill up, which is why the bear hung around for so long. I've said it before on this channel, and I'll say it again. Nature teaches us so much about patience and being present in the moment. We were very fortunate on our little impromptu trip. In the hundreds of kilometers of driving, the hours of watching and waiting were 100% worth it for us. There's nothing like the immediacy and the rawness of being so close to a bear that you can hear it breathe and snort as it catches and devours salmon, and of the smell of fish that hits you the moment you step out of the car. And then, when the bear was full, he climbed up the creek bank and came within a few meters of us as he crossed under the platform before disappearing back into the forest. And in case you needed another reason to visit Hyder, you also get to see a snippet of the Tongass National Forest, which covers most of southeast Alaska and is the largest national forest in the United States, at 16.7 million acres. I'm sure we've all seen the nature documentaries where 2, 3, or more bears are all standing at the top of the same waterfall catching fish. While it is possible to see some of those amazing animals and events in person, it requires research, a lot of patience, and a bit of luck to maximize the chances. It's important to bear in mind, no pun intended, that what we see in nature documentaries and even in YouTube videos like this one is a carefully edited selection of the best moments presented in a condensed way. With that in mind, here are my tips for visiting Hyder and to maximize your chances of seeing bears. Tip number 1. If you can, try and give yourself a couple extra days to increase your chances of bear sightings. Even though we were able to see and do everything we wanted to in only 36 hours, you can maximize your chances of seeing bears and also go at a slower and more relaxed pace if you give yourself some extra time. But also keep your eyes peeled during the whole trip because you can see bears anywhere in the area, including on the drive there or back. Tip number 2. Turn off roaming on your phone before you approach the border, unless you have a plan that includes it at no extra charge. There's no cell service at the observation site anyways, which leads me into tip number 3. Buy your tickets to the observation site online in advance. They did have satellite internet that people can connect to, but if you go first thing in the morning, it takes them a long time to get it going, and it just saves you a lot of hassle if you do it online in advance. Tip number 4. Go as close to dawn and dusk as possible, but be prepared to stay for at least an hour or two each time. Your ticket is valid for the whole day, and they keep a list of visitors, so you can come back as many times as you'd like. Tip number 5. Make sure you bring your passport. Although there's no U.S. Customs office at the border, on the way back from Hyder you do have to stop at Canada Customs and show valid identification. And when you do your customs declaration, just note that bear spray is considered a weapon. It's not a problem at all, and they expect you to have it, but you do still need to declare it. And tip number 6. Stop and buy some local handmade fudge at the gift shop in Hyder. One of the border control agents told us that there are different flavors each week. The fudge also needs to be declared, but assuming it's a reasonable amount, it's not a problem either. I'll also include some extra information about the Fish Creek Wildlife Observation Site in the description down below. Please note that these tips are based on my personal experience and are up to date as of September 2023, but make sure you do your own research and always check the appropriate websites for the most up-to-date information before your trip. Life really is a big adventure. Thank you for joining me on mine, and I'll see you next week when I take you with me to the world's largest glacier that you can access by road.